Hey, it is 8 o'clock, couple seconds after it. It is Tuesday. What is the July 15th? This is DMR Tech Net TV with our special guest, Ed W8EMV, talking about Tailscale. Ed, by the way, in case you forgot, you sent me a QSL card just about 2 years ago. Thank you so very much for that. Good to finally chat with you live in person versus being on the UP net on Sunday nights. So thank you very much. Join us with the DMR TechNet team. I see Steve, KC8WXM. We also have James, N8TMP. I see Bob, who's one of our net control stations on the Michigan 1 DMR TechNet, hiding in the corner, KB8, Donald Quack Quack as he goes by. We've also got Rick, 88KN, and Stan, who is stuck in the rain, so he's just going to be listening in. But Stan is WB8QJZ. When I was at Dayton a couple years ago, they were talking about remote control of your radio when you're not at home. And I watched the presentation. It was really cool. Then they mentioned the price. That wasn't so cool. So I was real excited to hear about this Tailscale. In fact, I just noticed too, we have Bradley with us too, KE8, Whiskey November Victor, who also is real highly spoke of you and also talked about Tailscale. So we're curious if you will take some time, explain what Tailscale is, what it does, how it can benefit us, how you use it with amateur radio, and then if you'd be so kind to answer any questions we have, I'd sure appreciate that. So welcome, Ed. The microphone is yours.
Thanks, Dana, and thanks everyone for joining in. I'm Ed W8EMV, or what I should probably say to brag a little bit, W8EMV/AE. I just got my extra license last weekend, so pretty happy about that. I'm here to talk about Tailscale. Um, Tailscale, as you might know, but you might not know, is a program that basically runs a little network stack on your computer that does cryptography back to other hosts inside your network, as well as routing and name service and a whole bunch of other features, um, so that you can interconnect a bunch of systems of your own as a as if it were a single network. Um, you can have your computer at home. You can have your Raspberry Pi in the shack. You can have a radio that has an Ethernet interface on it and get to it remotely. You can have your mobile phone going down the highway. You can have devices that change their IP address depending on where they are and still be able to get to them by a predictable address. So it's a very versatile network application for things. Just to be clear about the commercial aspects of it, Tailscale is a commercial company. I do not work for them. I am a user. I've paid them money, so I'm a customer more so than a product shill. They're not the only company in this space. There's a product called Zero Tier that does something similar to this. And Tailscale is based on a Linux kernel application called WireGuard, and WireGuard is free as in, I don't know, free as in Linux, right? You can get it as a module for your kernel and connect two machines with WireGuard and have the same kind of um, cryptography performance as you would have with Tailscale. The big difference with Tailscale is that you have a what seems to be a seamless interconnection amongst a bunch of machines on your network. And Dana, if with your permission, I will share my screen for a moment and set up just a little bit of what it looks like once I get to the right page on my machine.
Absolutely,
And
Ed. Yeah, we'd love to see it.
so the idea behind it is you run a Tailscale you run Tailscale software on individual devices on your network, whether they be, let me just get a screen up so that we can level set here.
But by the way, in case you're wondering, Ed is out in his vehicle because he's actually at an amateur radio club meeting tonight in Ann Arbor. And he gave his presentation, and now he's joining us for the TechNet TV. And thank you, Ed, for doing so.
Sure thing. Let's see if I can make this work here. Share. Okay, we'll drop into Safari for a moment. So Tailscale, this is their homepage. They've got, I'm going to reject all the cookies for now. They've got a VPN software primarily aimed at corporations, but something unusual about the way their system works makes it not very expensive or not expensive at all for them to provide a free tier of service just to get people hooked on it. So what I'll do is I'll log in and give them my Google credentials.
So they're basically aimed at corporate enterprise stuff, but also for the individuals.
Yeah, they're basically aimed at corporate, like a bunch of companies that are trying to attract skilled people who are not quite ready to buy things but want to give it a good try. They have a free tier that is ideal if you're running a home lab of some sort. So if you've got one computer, you're probably not the target customer. But if you've got 5 or 10 or 15 that you're trying to wrangle, or they're in a couple different places, it's very appealing to you to have some kind of coordinated network software to connect from stuff. So I'm in my car tethered on my phone to things. So my home computer is relatively speaking far away, but we'll just log into this Raspberry Pi and pops up a little browser window. I have to authenticate again. Yes, I'm still me. Connecting to Tailscale, connecting to Pi 5. Okay, I'm in. I'm
And
connected
we
to a
can't
machine
see that,
that's,
Ed.
what's that? You
We
can't see it.
can't see the pop-up.
Okay, let me change the screen share so that it shares the desktop instead. And now can you see it?
Nope, still the Tailscale machines page.
Okay. Well, Fooey, let's be convincing when I say something. Now I think you can see it.
Yep,
Yep.
we can see the
Yep.
terminal shell now.
Yep. So
Mhm.
I'm just logged into a root shell on the Raspberry Pi at my house. Um, it's one of an embarrassingly large number of little computers I keep around the house. It doesn't have any radios attached to it, but I do have some other machines that I have connected to. And I'm going to go back to the browser and show you what it looks like for some of those. Just to give you a sense for like opening up a shell window on a machine far away. Like if you've used computers and Linux before, that's probably very similar to the experience that you might have had before. Um, let's go share the Safari system. So this is a list of all the machines that I'm connected to.
Just a
Uh,
few, eh?
just a few. Well, some of these are not actually running right now. Like I have this machine called Lemony, um, which is a MacBook Pro that was a Lemon. I know this like a machine that broke really fast. If you key up a 2 meter rig to it, next to it, the screen goes all crazy. So I got that online once, but didn't keep it. Um, and I don't think I'm giving away any secrets by showing you all the internals of stuff. Um, the Pi machine is my Raspberry Pi running Raspberry Pi Zero running the Pi DMR gateway software. So let me pop open a window on that. Oh, I can just do copy, copy that, paste that here. This is a Pi 0, so it should take a little bit longer. But there's the control screen for the DMR gateway that I have at home. And if anyone were to key up a DMR connection on Brandmeister 3126, 3166, or 31268, you would see a connection show up on that. I can do that from this. Here we go. From this interface. Yep. We got you there, KE9COT. Thank you for checking. With this, I can connect into the Pi-Star gateway running at my house from remotely. So I can, if I'm using my rig somewhere in the field, I can see whether I'm getting into the repeater or getting into the other hotspot directly. So that's a useful tool. Another system, just to give the rundown of the radio stuff that I have online. I'm running OpenWebRx Plus, which is a we get to use some static. That's great. Let me cut the static out if I can. So this is a Pi 400 with a built-in keyboard with a AirSpy HF Plus antenna attached to it, AirSpy HF Plus SDR attached to it, and a U-loop loop antenna, and that's all running at home. I can tune into that from essentially wherever I am and connect in there. So it's similar if any of you used Kiwi SDR software. This is a very similar sort of front end to it, except I don't have to share this with the world. I can just have a receiver all for my own. And then the other, just as an example, right, of radio things you might do, I've got, I think this will work. Yes, I've got an OpenSpot 4, which which doesn't run Tailscale all by itself, right? It's not a IP computer that you can assign things to, but I have a machine on my home network that's forwarding for IP addresses on my home network, and therefore it can reach the OpenSpot system and display things that way. And I can even, if I were to choose to, turn on the OpenSpot's call audio playback and remotely monitor the DMR Tech Net on TGIF from this site. So some of this is, the fun thing about Tailscale that takes a little while to understand is that it's basically building an overlay network. I don't want to make any assumptions about how much TCP/IP background people have, so I'll try to leave this sort of at a fairly high level. But imagine that your computer, instead of talking directly to the internet, instead, when it tries to make a connection out to the internet, that's intercepted by the Tailscale agent, the Tailscale daemon, really the Tailscale router. And that router knows all of the locations of all of the other machines on your private network, that long list of machines that I had on the earlier screen. Let's go back to the login screen, admin console. There we go. So the software on my computer knows about all these systems and knows how to get to all these systems and what to do with them. Now, installing this is a matter of There's a Windows installation thing. There's a Mac installation thing. There's packages for a bunch of Linux distributions. So you can, if you're on a Raspberry Pi, you can do an apt install. If you're on Fedora, you can do DNF. If you're on your favorite Linux distribution that has a different package manager, you can do that. On the phone, there's an application that you can install from either the Google Play Store or the iPhone Store, depending on what you're doing. And it'll install a version of the Tailscale routing software and authenticate you to your network and let you connect to any of the other machines on your network. So, to give you an example of the choices I've made with my life of what to do and what not to do, I'm running Home Assistant. Um, I have a Pi just for playing with and doing things that don't need to work. I have a Pi that's got this RX OpenWeb RX Plus. Uh, this is an old Mac laptop that's not turned on right now. As you can see, it hasn't been on since a little bit. Um, this Fedora machine is the other side of my MacBook Air running Asahi Linux, which is a distribution for the Mac. This Go service is one other thing you can do with Tailscale is embed it into your applications so that you can have a system running that's a node on the network separate from the system it's running on. I don't know if that's a great explanation, but you basically have a service running that you can connect to. So this Go service is a little bookmarking service. This Moto G7 machine is my old cell phone that has a bad power connector, so I don't have it plugged in. And the NAS machine is my Synology network attached storage that runs Jellyfin, so I can play music if I choose to. A couple more desktops. PiAware has a ADSB receiver on it, so I can listen for airplanes. This Volter machine is a VM at a company called Volter that sells VMs for a couple bucks a month, so I set that up. The Samsung thing is my cell phone, so you can see it's running Android 15. And finally, Woodward is my MacBook M1, which I'm typing on right now. So that's a pretty wide variety of systems. It's got a couple radios as examples for that. And as you could see from the OpenSpot 4, the machine if you want to make outbound connections to a machine that's on one of the networks that you can control, you can use this local network forwarding feature to make connections to machines on your LAN. So pretty versatile. I think I should stop for just a moment because I've talked for a fair bit straight and answer an easy question or two, and then try to talk through some more advanced features. Um, Dana,
Sure.
were there any questions on the chat that came through? I wasn't looking at that.
I didn't see it on the chat, but I'm sure other people have some questions like Rick or Steve or Brad. Brad, I'm sorry I forgot to introduce you earlier as one of part of the DMR TechNet team, but my oversight on that one. And Jeremiah is tech support at Bridgecom Systems. So I want to say welcome to both of them. Brad, did you have a question or something you wanted to share about Tailscale?
Um, I do use Tailscale, and I was going to talk about using exit nodes in a bit.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, if you can go through
Uh,
that because
yeah, I can talk about using the exit nodes now if you want, unless there's someone else that has a question first.
And I'll ask my question, but Ed already answered, and we saw it on the screen. I said, "Does Tailscale work with Arduino and or Pi-Star?" But Ed answered that before the show started, and also we saw it when he connected up to them. So
Yeah, I think you can connect to any machine that has an IP address. So the open spot would be an example of that, right? Running it's not running Tailscale itself, but there's a helper node that connects through it through the local network gateway. And then, Brad, when you talk about exit nodes, that sort of takes that to the next level for connecting outbound to the internet as a whole.
Yes, it certainly does.
What's the overhead on each machine for Tailscale? Do you have to have some kind of a client or server sitting on each machine?
You have a server running on each machine. To give you an idea of how little the overhead is, um, I have it running on a Pi Zero. That's my Pi Star gateway,
Mhm.
and I think that machine has 512 megabytes of memory or some like less than you would expect amount of memory, and it runs just fine. There's a little bit of CPU overhead, but really not too bad, and a little bit of a memory footprint. Again, it's small enough to fit in a Pi Zero. Um, any relatively modern machine. See, I've got it on a Pi Zero with 512 megabytes of memory. I've got it on a Pi 3 with 1 gigabyte of memory. In both cases, just fine. Um,
Okay, I'm thinking in terms of these little guys. And it sounds like you've got to have a server on a Pi Zero or a Pi that connects to them and controls them. Is that correct?
yeah, does the breadboard you have a Ethernet connection on it or
Well,
no?
I've got an ESP32 that has Wi-Fi,
Yeah,
and this is I think a 2040 that has Wi-Fi on it.
yeah, you shouldn't have any problem. Brad, do you remember what the name of the feature is that gives you? Is it it's a local network. Let's go to settings here.
Um,
The setting that lets you connect to machines on your that gives you a gateway to machines on your on a local network. It's a subnet router. There we go. See if I can find my example of the subnet router here.
So I take it the subnet router calls home to the Tailscale server. That way you don't need to poke holes in your firewall.
Yeah, so the firewall hole poking stuff is interesting. Um, there is a little bit of a central coordination going on. Um, you're not once the hole has been poked between one firewalled machine and another firewalled machine, the traffic goes direct.
Hmm,
But sometimes the first traffic has to go through a relay. So you send essentially you send your first. It's you're not doing this consciously. It's just happening.
yeah,
First packet that goes out to the address gets intercepted by a relay, which pokes a hole in the other firewall, and then coordinates updating so that both sides know where to send traffic to. So in the normal course of events, you're not streaming your data through a Tailscale server. You're occasionally bouncing one packet off of a Tailscale server to facilitate the hole poking part, the hole punching part. But in general, the traffic, which is why they can do it for free or very cheap for hobbyist use, because they're not actually transiting traffic. They're just opening up connections.
Rick, did that answer your question?
Somewhat, somewhat. I'm still on the, okay, how do I, so I've got to have a Tailscale server set up on some variety of a machine. and that can talk to the microcontrollers to have it do something. So that punches the hole, whether it's coming in from the web through a web interface to the macro or however it's doing, but it's
So I
straight
think
through.
Yeah, Brad, why don't
I
you take it from here to describe the
yeah, I
tailscale stuff?
think if I go over exit nodes, that might clear some stuff up for you, Rick.
Okay.
Um, so running AllStar, let me share my screen real quick so we can see. But running AllStar, while I am uh at work using my mobile hotspot, I can't connect to anything because it won't authenticate on the network because it likes to have a stable IP address. Um, so is what I did is here's my Tailscale account here. Um, on my computer, which I'm using as an exit node, which is denoted right here. I went into here, exit nodes, and I clicked this as run exit node. So it's what this is doing is it is communicating with um my AllStar node. So all my AllStar traffic will go through my home desktop computer. So if I'm at work, if I'm driving my car down the road, my AllStar thinks my AllStar node is coming from this IP address registered at my house still. So it's using their servers to connect those two devices and pass traffic through back to your network. So to get that running, you have to go into AllStar, sudo tailscale set exit node equals, and then you put the IP address right here. At the end. And once you hit enter, that's now telling my AllStar node that any traffic it's going to send out to go to this IP address if I were to type the command in right.
Two equals.
Yeah, need the equals there.
Yep, there it goes. No node net map with. Okay, I copied something wrong. Oh, yep.
So if you have something operating as an exit node like that, then can you advertise that for other people to be able to access?
Yes, you can.
Yes. You can. You can also use Mullard VPN, which there is a cost to. I think it's $5 a month, and use Mullard VPN as your exit node instead. So you're behind a VPN firewall.
If you want to connect inbound to if you want to connect inbound to a machine that's running on your network, you basically the thing is called a funnel node. So I think if anyone wants to try connecting to that machine, it should be the case that you'll see the OpenWebRx Plus system that I have running.
What's
I
the
hate to interrupt,
Tailscale
guys, but
address?
I gotta bail.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
What was the Tailscale address, Ed?
It's
I just tried it and it says site can't be reached.
Maybe I turned that off. It's easy to turn things on and off, so
It is super easy to do. Everything is super user friendly in Tailscale. If you're doing it on Linux, like the PyStar or the AllStar nodes, it's simple commands, and they're like when you go to install it, add device, client device, select Linux, copy command. You just literally just type in that command they tell you onto your either SSH or command prompts or terminal in Linux. Hit enter, it installs, and at the end it tells you Tailscale up. Type in sudo Tailscale up, and it's running. Once you authenticate it in with the web address they provide you.
So my use case is I have an Elecraft K4, which other K4s can connect to directly, but normally you have to poke a hole through the firewall to do that. And I cannot put any applications in the K4 itself, but it has an Ethernet connection. So can I point to the IP address that it has and tell Tailscale that it's an exit node or that it's available?
You can let me let me do a quick bit of searching to see if I can get the right answer.
And I will. Yes, I think you were talking about that earlier, Ed, with your open spot.
Right.
That's what he was asking about, how you were doing the open spot connection, because the open spot cannot have the auxiliary software installed.
Right. So it's what's called a subnet router. And the observation is that not every machine on every network is going to be that you can't necessarily install additional software on every piece of hardware you have.
Right.
Elecraft would be one. My OpenSpot would be another. So I don't know, Dave. Did you see the OpenSpot setup I did? So your Elecraft would look kind of like that. It would
But the open spot has a web server and you're connecting to it on port 80
right.
or 443. But the Elecraft doesn't. Instead, you're connecting to it over like port 9002 or 9004.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's
So
you,
the
you have to log into
routing,
it. Yeah.
the Tailscale routing works on any port, not just IP address, not just web. It's not just sending. It's not just relaying traffic on web pages. It'll relay TCP or UDP traffic.
Okay.
You would just put a colon at the end of the IP address with the port number you're running off of. And that tells it what port to look for.
Oh, that's interesting. Something to play with for sure.
Yeah,
That's what
I think it could work, Dave. I'm not going to promise that it will work the first time, but it sounds very plausible.
But worst case scenario, you're out 1 or 2 gigs of hard drive space temporarily while you play around with it because it's free.
Right. I mean, the whole idea is that I would much rather be able to do something like that than to, have a dedicated Raspberry Pi or something like that talking to that radio, and then you have to, do everything to the radio through a remote program running on the Raspberry Pi or on the laptop. Because there are remote programs like that just can talk to the radio over the LAN. And then, so if you have a laptop, a dedicated laptop, and you just remote that, why then that's another way of doing it. But then you're not really talking directly to the radio. You've got you got a remote access program in the middle of it.
Right. So I think what you're looking to do would be, do you have a machine that's on the same net as the Elecraft and that runs 24/7?
Yes, I do.
So you could run a Tailscale client on that
Yeah.
and set it up as a subnet router to, in a controlled way, relay access to any other devices on your subnet to other devices on your tailnet.
Okay. That would be good because I can essentially nail up the IP address for the Elecraft. So on my local LAN, it's always the same IP address.
Right. And then so you can, yeah, you would need to do that as well because you don't have as much, you don't get a a name, you just get an IP address, but you'd be able to get to the IP address on your LAN from somewhere else. That
It does
wasn't.
have a WINS local name,
Oh, okay,
similar to the OpenSpot, where you can go to openspot.local.
right. Brad, you want to talk more about exit nodes, and have you used the funnel node stuff?
I have not touched the funnel node stuff yet because the exit node serves my function of being able to connect to stuff while on my Pi or my AllStar node. It doesn't like connecting because of the unstable connection. I have a AllStar node at home that runs my permanent bridges, so that one's no issue. It's just the mobile one,
The mobile one, because it
and
really
it's not
wants to see it really wants to see a unchanging IP address.
that your mobile networks will not give you.
Right, right.
Even the home Wi-Fi routers won't give you that. Was there
Yeah,
any questions on the exit nodes? Because I went over how like the use cases of them from my standpoint. I haven't tried connecting anything else to exit nodes.
I got a question for Dave. Dave, is this something you could use or do you use something else?
Well, the only other thing that I'm familiar with on a peer-to-peer basis is Hamachi. And I had used that before, setting up a network of operators using N1MM plus, and they were all connected to each other peer to peer using Hamachi.
nice.
So
Well,
yeah,
is that commercial or free tier or?
it was a free tier. I think I have a commercial version of it, but just for our use, we were using a free version of it.
Okay. And this was N1MM of a bunch of operators in different physical locations, but
Yeah.
operating as a single team.
Yes.
And N1MM really wants to have a local area network to
Yeah.
broadcast to, if I'm
Yes.
right.
Exactly. Yeah, we use it a field day all the time, but everybody's all tied to the same access point.
Right.
So yeah, I think something like Tailscale would be interesting. And I just went to the K4 users group and did a search on Tailscale, and there's a conversation here with somebody using it on a Mac. So I figure I'll go through that and see what he did.
Yeah.
Dave, you just pointed out another good use case for Tailscale field day because you all get put on the same Tailscale network. You don't have to have anything special if Wi-Fi is not the best. Everyone can use their own Wi-Fi if they have to.
Yeah, it would
I
be,
want to field test that first before.
yeah, what we had done was, and you're right, because our access point didn't have internet access, which was a little goofy. We were all talking to each other, but nobody could see anything on the internet.
Because we ran a switch and a bunch of Ethernet cables, right?
Well, it was a switch and a Wi-Fi access point.
Switch and a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had something similar, except for the guy who set it up brought his mobile hotspot with the Ethernet port on it and hooked that into it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we could have done that, but whoever was in charge of that did not do it. So, and I was not in charge of it. So, if I was, I would have hooked my hotspot up, but we'd be done.
But I mean, that would be something to test a few times on set up a fake like a dummy Tailscale for a club that people can
Yeah,
temporarily join and then kick them out once field day's over.
Yeah. Yeah, the user model is interesting. You can, if you have a tailnet of your own, you can share out individual nodes with other people who also have Tailscale. So for instance, my the NAS storage server that I have at home, I share with my son who lives the next town over. So he's in Ypsilanti, I'm in Ann Arbor. He remotes into that for file storage. And that extra user on my plan doesn't cost me anything because he's just using one node. So I think you could rig it up to have a club network as long as you might run into the limitations on number of users just because you would look more like a small business than a club.
I think you can have 100 users on the free one I read somewhere,
Oh,
if I
okay.
remember correct.
That's a bigger number than I remember, so that would be good.
Is there a
Uh,
maximum number of computers or devices you can hook up to Tailscale with a free network?
Yes. I think the the s- the s- I want to say the free plan is, well, I'm looking at
uh,
their pricing. Like the starter plan is 100 devices plus 10 per user, but there's a free tier as well,
yep, I'm
which
looking at the free tier. I was wrong. It's 3 users, 100 devices.
3 users, 100 devices.
Oh,
So you're going to run out of machines. You're going to run out of users before you run out of machines. Um,
well,
and
but
like I said from the start, the real use of this is small business up to enterprise scale, and you'll pay dollars to tens or dozens of dollars a month per seat at scale, right? For large deployments, because there's more policy you can stick in the middle of the network. You can say, here's the accounting department, here's the engineering department, they should never see each other's stuff, or any of that kind of advanced enterprise networking feature sets start to appear at the higher price levels. And I'm not going to try to sell you on that because I think there's enough useful stuff at the free level to make it interesting.
so if I set up a subnet router exit node, and it sounds like we may run into a problem with a max of 3 other people that could connect to it. Is that what the problem is there?
You can share out individual nodes as I think as many times as you want. They won't have full access to your network, but they will have. But for subnet routes, I don't
Really,
really know.
yeah, really, all I want to do is I want to just have them have access to the Elecraft, the IP address of the Elecraft, and certain port numbers that I'm going to expose.
Right? Would it work for that to be public access in some way?
Yeah, that because the Elecraft itself is protected with this password for the connection.
Okay.
The one thing that I don't want to advertise is the port 9000, which is a telnet port, which is not protected.
Ah, I see. So you'd want some sort of policy routing on that that says you can reach a certain port range, but you can't reach a different port range.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you with any certainty whether that's doable, whether all of that is doable on the free tier, or whether you'd have to bump up to the
Yeah.
single user pricing. So,
Well, I mean, the other way of to do this, of course, is that I just essentially poke a hole through my um, firewall and do some port forwarding
right,
and only forward the ports that need to go outbound, and then use dynamic DNS or something so that other people can find the IP address
right.
of the external IP address of the router.
Yeah, it's the internet. There's more than one way to do it, right?
Well, it's just that the problem that we're running into is people who are running Starlink, for instance, that's running CGNAT. So
Hmm.
you're double natted, and that becomes a real problem.
Right, because there's no obvious way to poke a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And instead, up until now, it's just been, well, you have to just use a VPN, and then you're it's a point to point then.
right.
So that's why this idea of Tailscale being able to advertise something from a subnet router and be able and I mean it's kind of like doing that dance where you're essentially poking a hole through the firewall and then advertising it via dying DNS.
Right. Except instead of poking a hole inbound to the router, the
Right.
Tailscale nodes actually are poking. It's more outbound and
It's doing an
network.
outbound connection. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that in theory should get us around the CGNAT problems of some
Yes.
folks.
So I have a question for either Ed or Brad on this one. So say I'm this weekend I'm heading to Pittsburgh. If I had Tailscale, I could log in with Tailscale in Pittsburgh and say watch something on my TV set at home or control a computer. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds reasonable. Yeah, you do have to worry about network bandwidth. You do have to worry about delays. So if you were going to Tokyo and you wanted to play music from Tokyo to your home, there would be a substantial network delay, and that might get in the way of something. Probably not music playing, but if you were like remoting into a machine to play video games, you might find it laggy. Um, but routinely, going to Pittsburgh and going to the coffee shop are the same operation, right? They're the same. They exercise the network in very much the same way. You're connecting to some machine that's behind the network access translate network address translation, or you're connecting to something behind a firewall. Being able to get from far away to home or from home to far away makes it look like it's on the same network.
Got it. Ed, do you want to continue? Show us some of the advanced features?
I can show you one or two. I thought some of those features were pretty advanced.
Yeah.
um, the I'm trying to think what the most fun is here. Let me share screen again.
It turns out this guy used Apple TV boxes to do his setup.
Yes, Tailscale will run on Apple TV boxes. It'll run on Android phones if you have a spare one of those. It'll run on. I've run it on Pis down as small as a Pi 3 or a Pi 0. Um, Performance is going to vary a little bit, but mostly it's setting up network connections rather than, the Pi 0 is never going to be very fast anyway, so a little bit of encryption is just going to slow it down a little bit. Um, Let me see if I can. Do, 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 do.
He said the Apple TV box is more powerful than a Raspberry Pi. It's more energy efficient and less complex than a PC.
Uh, Completely believe it.
I'm gonna have to drop here, guys. I need to get to bed for work in the morning.
I need to
Thanks,
get
Brad, for all your help.
Thank you,
Yep.
Brad.
Yeah,
See,
have a nice night.
on 7.3s.
I set this up. I don't remember or not. Yeah, so I got my music from home, remoted in from my network access server so that I can play music whenever I want to. That's again, it's just an extension of your local network rather than a separate thing. I think my list of turned on or not turned on machines could be trimmed down a little bit. But you can also use this for just really device management, like, hey, what systems do I own and what operating system are they running and do they need an update, that sort of thing. So, and the advanced features, um, you can you can set up routing to third party. You can essentially force all traffic to a third party application through a connector. So you can say as a policy, everyone going to GitHub has to go through this connection so you can keep track of stuff. It'll keep track of what services you're running. So it knows that, for instance, on my Pi 5, I'm running Forge Joe, which is a GitHub sort of like thing. So you can keep track of what services you're running. I've got a list of users that have access to the net, which is just me right now. You can set up fairly complex policy-based routing for things. This is one system that I don't really understand very well, but could potentially be useful once you really get how this stuff works. It will keep track of logs of what's going on, so it keeps a track of me logging in and creating nodes and creating API keys and things like that. For a name service, it's got something called Magic DNS, and really all that does is make sure that if you're connecting to a machine on your tailnet, you can use a short name for it. So you always connect to this to whatever your whatever.ts.net setup is. And then from a ease of use perspective, it's got pretty comprehensive, do everything from the web interface. There is a command line for it, but which is fine, but you don't have to learn it if you don't want to. And billing, my personal plan that I'm on is free up to 3 users, and I've only used one of them so far, so I'm good for now for free.
How many total devices? You were showing us earlier, just the list went on and on and on.
It went on and on. 18 machines, it says.
Yeah, it says a max of 107, I think is what it said.
Yeah, so 18 machines, of which 2 haven't been seen for quite a while. No user suspended, no news. Yeah, so 18 machines. It gives you keys that will last for a certain amount of time. You can not expire the keys, but if you do expire the keys, it'll do things. And like this particular system here, I no longer have at all. So I can remove it from my network, remove machine. And suddenly I'm down to 17 machines once this kicks in.
Hmm.
I had a bad habit of collecting Raspberry Pis for a while. And then collecting enough network access points and switches to plug them all in, and then collecting Ethernet cables and USB cables to power them up. Fortunately, they're all up in the attic. Unfortunately, the attic temperature gets really hot in the summertime because
Yeah.
it's not air conditioned. So I'm doing some thermal stress testing while I'm at it as well.
Jeremiah, you've been quiet tonight. Any questions you have about Tailscale for Ed?
Not so much questions, is flashbacks of going in and seeing configuration files in PHP and fixing stuff when I used to build websites and seeing source code, and it's actually something I'm working on right now in the background here, trying to optimize some stuff. Found out that one image that I had was almost 2 megabytes and was able to convert it to WEPB or WEBP and knock it down to 56 kilobytes. So that will greatly
Nice.
improve load times. So,
Yeah, there's a fair bit of advanced configuration that requires you to dig into the configuration for stuff.
Mhm.
like I say, I haven't had to use it in anger ever, so I don't know how well it really works. Their documentation is pretty good. Their support is pretty good. Just generally like quality folks to work with. So I wouldn't have any hesitation to use this for real on a small commercial network. But my place of work does not use it, even though we run a very large commercial network, just because it's not a match, right? Not a
Yeah,
thing to do.
because I remember setting up Pi-hole, if you've ever used that software before,
Yep.
on a Raspberry Pi, because I got sick and tired of Google killing ad blocker
Right.
every time you turned around, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll just kill Pi-hole, so it doesn't work half the time either." So,
Yeah, there's a way to do Pi-hole with Tailscale.
mhm.
You basically run Pi-hole in one place on your network, and then you set your um, name server up so that your Raspberry Pi is your DNS server.
Right. So basically, everything when it's asking for a DNS server, you go in and pick the primary DNS server location and change it from the default router setting or Google's 8.8.8.8, and change that to the IP address on your home network of the Pi-hole device.
Yeah, and with Tailscale, Tailscale manages a DNS server for you,
Mm-hmm.
so you can do that you can do all of that reconfiguration at Tailscale setup time,
Yep.
and it intercepts the DNS calls and routes them to the appropriate spot.
Okay.
And
Well,
I haven't done this myself, but it's one of their how-to guides, literally exactly the problem that you're sharing. So I have a
yeah.
pretty high degree of confidence that would work.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I ran into with Pi-hole, was, the DNS server and then using the lowest quality version of a Raspberry Pi that I could to try it out,
Yep.
and realizing that everybody in the house had switched to the Raspberry Pi's DNS server because they didn't want to see the ads. So I had 5 people at my one place that I lived that were trying to use that Raspberry Pi, and I'm pretty sure in the middle of the night you could hear it screaming, "Help me! Help me!" So,
Yeah,
yeah, that got
the
pulled
good
down.
thing is that the good thing that pies get better every 2 or 3 years.
Yes,
So
they do get a new generation, faster processor. However, faster processor,
more
smaller
power.
nanometer equals a lot more heat dissipation. Hence the
Yep.
reason that a lot of companies have not switched to the Pi 5 yet for their MMDVMs,
Yep.
because being able to
It's run
dissipate that
hot.
heat properly.
Yep.
But, it is what it is. The Pi 4 works great for most companies right now, and nobody really needs a Pi 5 to be running an MMDVM right now.
Especially because it'll fit on a Pi Zero and still work for some value of work.
Yes, as long as you're running one specific mode.
Right.
When you start piggybacking modes like D-Star and DMR and YSF, and you just turn everything on, that's when it screams for help.
Sure.
So, but no, just seeing what you pulled up in the source code there just gave me some flashbacks of editing PHP and HTML and cascading style sheets and all of that. So, back to programming days when I would Google what I needed to and then implement it and trial and error till I got it to work.
Yep.
Hence the self-taught part. So,
Well, that's how you learn, is by making mistakes and then getting things working again.
yep, just like ham radio. First
Exactly.
time you build an antenna, you may not have it cut right. SWR may be through the roof, but you figure out, okay, this is what I got to do. You trim the antenna, get that SWR down, and then you're talking.
Mm-hmm. James, N8TMP, do you have a question or a comment about Tailscale?
No, sir. I'm just listening. I don't think I have a need for anything like this at this point.
And then Ron, AC2UL, you used to do this kind of stuff at the university. Would this be useful?
We used to do things like this, and it was one of those things that because we scattered nodes around the entire state of New York to all 64 campuses. Actually, there's plus systems administration and another thing called the Rockefeller Institute. It gave us a few headaches trying to do that. And I've tried to stay away from it since I've been retired.
A good design, a good strategy there.
Unless I need it, this is not one of those things I just like to just play with,
That's nice.
I
That's
found
ham
this
radio.
very interesting today. It bring back a lot of relationships with the stuff we used to do in the university, and it's very good. I really appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Rick,
Well, I put a link in the
well,
chat. This is how Tailscale gets around CGNAT. You use their DERP servers.
Oh, right, derp. I didn't use that word, but yes.
Yes.
I
Sure.
see it there. Rick, did you have other questions? Because we're just about out of time.
Really, I know enough to be dangerous with this stuff, so I've got to do a lot of work.
Dave, any additional questions you had?
No, but now you've got me hooked. I'm going to have to play with this, I'm sure.
If you need any help, Dave, or if you want to practice remoting into any machines that I've got, just give me a holler and happy
Sure.
to help.
All right, thanks. Yeah.
That goes to anyone, but Dave is close enough by that I'm likely to
He can come over and beat me with a baseball bat if necessary.
ride by on my bicycle. Yeah.
Any other final comments or questions we have? They're shaking their heads, Ed.
Well, if that's
Ed,
it, I'll thank everyone for joining in, and Dana, hand it to you for a final. There you go.
Ed, one more thing. If they do want to reach out to you for any questions or comments, what's the best way to track you down?
If you can spell my name, my full name, Edward Vilmetti, I'm on Gmail, but probably the easiest way to track me down is for my call sign, W8EMV. I've got a blog under that name. I'm on QRZ. I'm on a couple different places. I'm on the Hams over IP phone network, so you can give me a ring there. Just look me up by call sign, and hopefully you will find me. And if you don't find me, second best way is to ask Dana, and he can help relay things. But
Or Brad or Dave.
or Brad or Dave. It's like I said, it's edward.vilmetti@gmail.com. But that's a lot to type correctly.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend looking up the call sign in your favorite search engine, and you'll probably find some trace of me, and work your way back from there.
It's hard to be private today, I'll tell you that. So, Ed, I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us tonight, explaining Tailscale, showing us real world examples with Brad's assistance helping out, all the good questions that you answered for us tonight. In the newsletter, we've got tailscale.com, I think it is where you guys can learn more. And as you said, it's absolutely free to get started. Up to 3 users, up to 100 devices. Can't go wrong with that. Next month for DMR Tech Net TV, that would be Tuesday, August 19th. We will be talking, and unfortunately, Steve isn't with us. He had to drop off. He gets up early to work. But how to use your radio outside your home area or country, unless I saw a really good presentation on drones and how that deals with amateur radio. Might try and get that in there for the next DMR Tech Net TV. So, Ed, thank you again. Appreciate everyone watching it. We'll post this on the website and also on our YouTube channel. Thank you. Good night. 73s from DMR Tech Net TV.